All right, hi. Welcome to your first tutorial on how to take the MAP Communication Arts test. Both your reading and language arts teachers will be expecting you to follow the process that's demonstrated here while you are taking the MAP test. As we go through this tutorial, you should have your Communication Arts practice test packet. That should be in front of you, and what I'm expecting you to do is go through step by step with me. The things that I mark, I want you to mark. The things I circle, I want you to circle, so forth and so on. We're not actually going to be taking the test through this tutorial, but I'm going to give you a lot of tips and things that I want to make sure that you are using. Ultimately, you will be taking the test on your own after you have finished this tutorial, and yes, it will be a grade, but what I want you to understand more than anything is that these are the tips and tricks that we expect you to be using while you're taking the test. The first thing that I want you to do, you should have your MAP practice test in front of you. And what I would like for you to do is go ahead and put your first and last name in the blank. So I'll go ahead and write mine in the blank. And then where it says teacher name, I want you to go ahead and put Miss Ryder. So you should have your first and last and then Miss Ryder as your teacher. For school district, please put Park Hill. For building or room, please put Lakeview, room 128. And for the date, I want you to go ahead and put this date, it'll be the 24th. Okay? Remember that when you're taking the MAP test, it's extremely important that you follow all directions, so that's why we went through this specific step here. One of the things that I would like for you to do is when you open the MAP test for the first time, you want to get an idea of what you are being asked to read and what you're being asked to do. So the very first thing that you want to do is survey the text. And the way that we are going to do that is by taking a look at everything that the text has to offer. So when I look at this, one of the first things that I notice, so again, our steps, and I'm going to try and write them over here. We're going to try and survey the test. And one of the first things I want to take a look at, like I said, is my text. Okay, so I see that my text is called Arithmetic and it's by Carl Sandburg. And as I just kind of skim over this and take a look at it, the form is something that should jump out to me. When I've got paragraph indentions that are similar to this, I see that the word arithmetic is repeated over and over. That should start ringing some bells in my head so that I know that I'm reading a poem. Okay, and once I've decided what it is that I'm reading, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, then I'm ready to take a look at my questions. So the second thing that we want to make sure that we are doing, we want to look at, read, and mark our questions. This is going to really help us to make sure that we are focused in the things that we are doing with the test. So go ahead and turn the page and make sure that you're looking at question number 1. When you look at and mark these questions, there are a couple of things that I want you to do. The first thing is figure out what the question is asking. And then the second thing is, what am I supposed to do? Obviously, when you see the volume of lines that's here, I'm clearly doing a constructed response question, and we have some specific things for when you do constructed response questions that we've been working on. We know that a constructed response question needs a claim, which is just your answer. We know that it needs support, which is evidence from text. And we know that it needs reasoning, which is your explanation. So as you're going through this, this is the things that we expect. On a side note, make sure that when you have margins right here, the only thing you can really write on are the lines themselves. So we should never see anything anywhere in these margins. Okay, if you have really big handwriting or you tend to write a lot, you can double up within this space, but that's about all you have available to you. So the first thing I want you to do is talk about what is the question asking. So I can tell that the question is asking what is the author's attitude specifically in relation to arithmetic. Okay, when I see things like author's attitude, those should cue some words for me. Things like maybe this could be talking about the purpose. So what is the author trying to communicate? And remember, we're not doing purpose in terms of entertain, persuade, or inform. What we really want to focus on is what the author is trying to communicate. And if we're talking about attitude specifically, we're talking about how the author is feeling, and specifically toward arithmetic. So that's what the question is asking. And again, you are writing the things I'm writing, underlining the things I'm underlining. Then I need to know what I'm supposed to do. So then I continue reading, use two details and or examples from the poem to explain your answer. So I know that I need two, and anytime there is a number listed in my question, I want you to circle that because I need two details or examples from the poem. I also know that I need to explain my answer, and that's really how the authors of the test are asking you to add your support and your reasoning. Okay, now when you go through and you actually answer this, please make sure to restate. So this should start with the author's attitude toward arithmetic is, followed by your claim, your support, and your reasoning. As you're adding your details, it's a really good test-taking strategy to also add a check mark as you're going through after you've added the details to make sure you've got your two. We'll look at the second question, and again, I want to know what is the question asking and what am I supposed to do? Okay, so what I'm supposed to do, I am supposed to complete the graphic organizer by listing two causes and their effects that are mentioned in the poem. I've also got to make sure that I give the chart a title, and I know that it's asking me, the question is asking for causes and effects in the poem. So those are the things that I'm focusing on. Again, right now we're not even answering the question. We just want to make sure that things are marked the way they need to be marked. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to question number 3. Again, just as a reminder, our first thing that we're going to do is we're going to focus on what is the question asking. And the second thing we need to figure out is what am I supposed to do? Okay, so looking at number 3, it says the passage you read is a poem. Okay, again, this is really important. If you had looked at the passage originally and you didn't recognize it as a poem, this should be to your benefit because there's a specific way that we read a poem that should be different than the way that we read, say, a nonfiction piece or a story. And it's asking me to identify two, so there's a number, features from the passage that indicate that it is a poem. So really, if I were to reword this, this is saying to me, and sometimes paraphrasing this is good, the question is really asking for me to prove this is a poem. So again, identify two features from the passage that indicate that it's a poem. So I'm being asked to identify that it is a poem or prove it. Okay, again, you still need to add your features of, we need to make sure that there is a claim, support, reasoning, and always, always, always restate. Okay, number 4, it asks us to identify only one example of figurative language in the poem. So I'm being asked to identify figurative language in the poem. And then it's telling me to describe the type of figurative language that it is. Okay? As soon as I see things like figurative language, I want things to be going off in my head. So when you think of figurative language, it should be sparking to mind things like a simile, a metaphor, personification, Take another minute and go ahead and complete this list with other types of figurative language. Again, jotting this stuff down for you somewhere in the margins is always helpful to make sure that you're staying focused on what you need to stay focused on. We'll go ahead and look at question number 5. Now there is an alternate constructed response item listed here. I do want you to answer this. Okay, and it says, the author repeats the phrase arithmetic is to provide different definitions of arithmetic. It's not really a part of the question, it's just explaining to you exactly what the author's doing. Then it asks me to identify one of the author's definitions, and I need to explain why you agree or disagree with the definition. Okay, so again, this is asking me to take a stance or make a claim, support it with evidence, okay, and add in my own reasoning. As always, with all of these questions, again, please, please, please restate, okay? Then when you're looking at multiple choice questions, okay, well, we're looking at 5 and 6. One of the most important things is that you cannot mark off obvious wrong answers. While this is a good testing strategy, it doesn't really work for the map test because when it's scanned in, any of your pencil marks get scanned in and you don't want it to invalidate your test or to have the wrong thing read as being correct. Okay, so I still want to know what am I being asked to do and what is the question. So in this one, I'm being asked to look for the author's purpose. Again, it lists things like persuade, inform, things like that, but really what you want to think about is the author's message. So don't get caught up in those terms for author's purpose, really focus on what the ultimate goal is, okay? So I know I'm looking for the author's purpose. In number 6, I want to know which phrase provides the best example of imagery. So here I'm looking for imagery, and again, that's another part of figurative language. In my mind, I should really be thinking about what that's asking me to do. The last page is your performance event, and this is really important because you are going to be asked to do something along these lines. It's not always a letter, although it can frequently be a letter. Really what we want you to know more than anything is you need to view any kind of long performance event type of a thing. You need to view this as a writing on demand. That means, again, we need a claim, we need support, we need reasoning. And really what this one will also be looking at are things like organization, spelling, things of that nature. So what we want to do here is we want to first of all mark our audience because we know that we can't do anything if we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. So this one is asking me to write a paper, not a letter, not anything else. It says write a paper. So that's really asking for an essay. And it's asking me to write this to my math teacher, and that's going to be my audience, and it should be really clear in my writing that this is my audience. The other thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we know that it's asking us to explain, and this is the important part, arithmetic in everyday life. So your entire essay should be making a claim about how arithmetic is used in everyday life. You're going to support that or explain it with specific details from the text and your own explanation. That's it for your tutorial on this. Please refer to the next video to look at how to actually mark the text for the poem for this essay.